So I just watched Star vs. the Forces of Evil, and I have a sudden urge to go to another dimension. Where the hell's that wand? Seriously, that theme song slaps. Oh hi! Welcome to So I Just Watched, the show that got chased off the air by universe conquering monsters until I put them in their place. Anyway, let's look at Star vs. the Forces of Evil, a show that took the kooky and the mundane and made long-lasting success with them. For a Disney cartoon, much like Nickelodeon ones, to last longer than a couple of seasons is nothing short of a miracle. Star vs. managed to do just that, stretching across 4 seasons before its end in 2019. It started out as the highest watched premiere in Disney XD history, which spurred itself forward and it never looked back. It's a show I tried to watch many a year ago and ran into a familiar roadblock. Star herself proved to be very polarising with her loud and shrill eccentricity, whilst Marco attempting to show off some cool guy, bad boy bravado when everyone sees him as a good dorky kid, and then she shows up as they get to know each other, made me nope all the way home as my media-based second-hand embarrassment social anxiety kicked in hard. Since then, it's a show that I kept my tabs on, enjoying the fan art and the compelling trans Marco theory on Tumblr more so than actually watching it. It also proved to be the first of what I'm calling the Disney Isekai trilogy, alongside Amphibia and the Owl House. Hell, that same second-hand embarrassment repellent happened with Luz in that latter show, so stop making loud and socially awkward characters go to other worlds, Disney, it's getting old! Thankfully and reluctantly, Star vs. won the community poll by a pretty solid margin, and now I have to step over the threshold and give this show the time it deserves, and see whether its first 4 episodes are enough for me to pursue more or leave it behind. Let's step through the portal and see what happens. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. This is a cartoon much like the ones I grew up with in the 90s and the early 2000s, combining 2 11-minute segments into one episode over 22 minutes. This means I am technically critiquing 8 individual episodes instead of 4. I was worrying about when this type of cartoon would turn up on this series, and lo and behold, here's the litmus test. So bear with me if I don't go into as much depth or detail as I normally would, because, understandably, we have a lot to cover. Premiere segment Star Comes to Earth pulls a Ron seal out of the bag from the get-go and does exactly what it says on the tin. We get exposition of Star's predicament and cementing her in the overarching narrative that we will see for a while yet, as Ludo tries in vain to get his measly bird hands on Star's wand and take over the world with the magic it contains. We see our 2 protagonists in good light, and it provides laughs with some nice action to bring excitement to high levels. Once you're past the awkward introduction of Marco that I mentioned early on, it actually proves to be quite the enjoyable story, a welcoming beginning that I sadly should have appreciated more all those years ago. Party with a Pony introduces Star's sassy floating friend whose overprotectiveness delivers a nice conflict, whilst laughs, pop culture references, and drama, as well as introducing the dimension hopping aspect to the world building, offers up variety and enticement for the future, alongside some other intriguing overhanging plot threads. Also, there's 2 little portal bits in these episodes that I just love, continuing it has editing involved, with each monster entering the portal having a different sized glow that shrinks and grows accordingly, and the score just stops the minute that Ponyhead goes through it. Little details like that make me smile, and overall this first tandem provides a combined collection of consolidated cheer. Great for about 75% of its runtime and much worth seeing. However, they were both, albeit rapidly short. This is an inherent problem that plagues all that follow on from it, as each segment falls into a deflating routine. Star stirs up trouble, mostly. Shit hits the fan as all the negatives of her actions amass before the wand returns things to normal or saves the day. And it goes by blisteringly quickly to where it's like these characters got injected with a sugar-fueled cocaine rush, which starts out lively, but gradually dulls the sensation of unpredictability, especially when its outcomes are telegraphed so easily. because honestly, once you click into the formula, there's no real anticipation to be found anywhere. This is something that I will make note of a little later on. But there's one frustrating little issue that I was never anticipating going in, as watching this series on Disney Plus showed one fatal flaw with the show's structure and design. There is no title card for each segment. No proclamation of the episode's name at all, just the credits to say who made it. It means with no ad break on the streaming service, it just cuts straight to the next one immediately when the prior one ends, meaning we as a viewer do not get much of a breather. That may be a marginal issue, however, as despite that, enjoyment can be found throughout humour, expressions and sight gags, which are numerous, frequently buoying the structural stability with ever-expanding lore and world-building from some quite unexpected places, and the wonderful voice acting reciting tight scripts ensure you can still watch and enjoy, even though you may not fully immerse yourself in the episode outright. Hell, the amount of randomness and intriguing plot setups do enough of a job in that department. Except for the second episode's representative parties, Matchmaker and School Spirit, both of which focus on the school life a bit more, leading Star to try and bribe her way out of an F and... well, the teacher becomes a troll and Ludo's enemies are back again. The fight feels copy-pasted from the pilot segment with different attacks, making me worry that this evil alignment insertion may already be tired if it continues to go this direction forward. School Spirit sees Marco, the safe kid, wanting danger, as the pilot established, protecting a friend from potentially being stolen by the rival football team as the mascot, as Star misconstrues his words and turns the game into a death trap. It's awkwardly juxtaposing with both protagonists' personalities showing themselves in vastly negatively impactful ways, which makes this not a fun watch at all. Both episodes try too hard to give you that wild magical whimsicality, but showing the downside of embedding it in wherever the southern US Echo Creek is based in. It was an uncoordinated dance that needs refinement if it's to be done in the future, especially if shown directly one after the other. You're not going to find very good things to say when that really brings down the mood. Third episode segments Monster Arm and the other exchange student sum it up pretty damn well, as the former sees Marco get a tentacle arm, and thankfully this was treated tastefully, as the impending karate tournament goes the direction I expected, into a clustered mess as Star fixes the problem, and Marco learns an important lesson about not letting his ego overwhelm his judgment, whilst laying foreboding potential for the arm to come back if the end of the episode is to be believed. Again, another relatively entertaining yet passive entity, and what I said earlier about the predictability of the overall narrative formatting is definitely showing itself with this as a prime example. Star sets up the issue and inevitably will solve it as everything goes to shit. Do you see now why this is a problem? Because it really makes these episodes feel paint by the numbers, dull, and despite some obvious, well-intentioned humour, story and character progression involved to at least retain your interest, when you take it down to the bare bones, there isn't really a lot to gnaw at, and that's disappointing, especially given this is the first segment of the third episode, and this kind of thing has already happened twice beforehand in the episode that preceded it. Hopefully this doesn't happen again before the end of the selection, because I will not be happy realising that this show, in its first season, has already found a formula that it is happy to stick with. Thankfully, the latter segment of this episode puts my mind at ease, as a former Scandinavian exchange student arrives, leading Star to get jealous, as a trail of breadcrumbs sets up her mental breakdown and builds really anticipatingly for a climax that you really want to see come to blows, but it doesn't really go the way expected, and as a result doesn't live up to the billing, and up until this point I was enjoying the outrageous fun and the foreboding tension that the tone put through. Oh well, I just now have to ponder this screenshot and decode when the Diazes started accepting foreign exchange students, because this leaves more questions than it answers, and I will have to get a shovel and dig down into a rabbit hole on the internet to see whether this has any real meaning at all. The final episode's duo, Cheer Up Star and Quest By, throws a further spanner into the already noted woes by kicking the former off in media res and utilising flashbacks to set up how the narrative reached such an ominous end whilst exploring Star's infatuation with a bad boy, and also Marco's worst day ever and the emotional fallouts of each. Oh, and there's a climactic battle. Again, that actually contained more laughs than action on this occasion to make it different from the norm, further bucking the trend. The latter sees us go to a magic supermarket in another dimension, as the scatterbrained and organised mantras of both Star and Marco respectively are put out to be tested, whilst the villains absent-mindedly find themselves in the same place, leading to a wild goose chase against time. Fun, but feeling like I'm treading on familiar eggshells. I can see that there's more in the tank for this show, but early on, as I've noted, they're sticking to their guns and playing it relatively safe, being formulaic whilst also showing the eccentricity of absolutely everything that this show has on its plate, at least as a introductory serving. And before we go to the final verdict, while I noted earlier on that the intro song does indeed slap, the ending one is also an earworm too, but just not as high a tempo. That intro visually has no issues with motion blur obscuring all the details and characters as it weaves through its frames like a knife through butter. Other cartoons, such as Hilda for example, suffers from it moving too damn fast in the title sequence. So now anytime I see an intro like it, that zips through it and isn't rendered properly at the appropriate frame rate, I will have Star vs. the Forces of Evil to fall back on as the standard bearer. Plus, I have to also comment on the animation that not only goes along with this, but also with the entire show, as it blends the chaotic with the cute aesthetically, the elastic with the stationary in its movement, and creates a sense of impending manic energy, even when it really isn't doing much. It's fluid, expressive, and with a very bold and vibrant colour palette, it works in cohesion with a soft and charming aesthetic, filled with varied character designs that makes every single one of them front or back stand out, even if they do not speak. And when you combine that with some enjoyable episodes, despite some obvious problems, it leaves a very respectable impression on the viewer at hand. So after all that, would I recommend Star vs. the Forces of Evil? Yes. It's great, but this outcome may not make a lot of sense given what I've said right before this, so yeah, let me explain my reasoning. Is it a bit weird that this cartoon has me conflicted in the best way possible, and shows the issue with this 4-episode viewing format in particular? I enjoyed my time with Star and Marco and their wild shenanigans more than I anticipated, yet I'm weary that these episodes, despite showing flashes of depth, hilarity and drama, are withholding the keys of a more bountiful treasure to ransom. I want to see more, which is definitely the purpose of this show, but can see where having a relatively safe formula for its first season has brought these exciting and intriguing stories down a peg. It's made for kids to enjoy, and that would certainly fit the bill, because as an adult watching, I can sense disappointment with the sterility, especially narratively, that this has caused. But the kid in me is looking at all the background elements and is licking his lips at just what has been laid out on the table. It's a series that is stabilising itself to safeguard viewers whilst allowing the room for creativity to be in abundance, ready to let rip once a second season was inevitably greenlit. These 4 episodes of 8 segments may show this cartoon in mostly good but occasionally bad flickering light that I'm willing to give it the chance to live up to the expectations that are nestled within it, and it proves that whilst this format may have a definitive cutoff point for critique, it's whatever the show leaves radiating from it in the aftermath that is more important. Because yes, this show may have had some teething problems, but at least it sets itself up for a long-term viewer to get a hell of a lot out of it if it manages to live up to those expectations. Yes, it may have tripped over itself a little, but it got back up and kept on running, and I have to respect that. It's the reason why I feel so conflicted, because yes, the problems were quite damaging, but I was willing to look past them because this show is potentially going to entertain me for more than just the sum of these 4 11-minute, double-headed 22-minute combined segments, and that is a good thing. Yes, Star and Marco do have character personalities that are very Marmite, because you are either going to love them or you are going to hate them. This show is not for everyone. If you are willing to let the ice thaw a little and give this show a chance, you might find something that's charming, fun, and entertaining, and I am willing to watch on and see what happens. I've been Freddie Thomas, you've been people watching, this is the CC Network, and I will see you all next time.